Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be doing my Formula E Monaco ePrix power rankings. So starting right away, number 22, I have Norman Nato, same position as last race. So for Nato, I think a really fantastic qualifying. He got himself up into the top 4, but the race I think was pretty tough, and by the end of it he was outside of the points. And he really didn't make the most of his grid position going into the race. So I think it's unfortunately another kind of tough race for a long string of kind of tough races where you feel that he's kind of underperformed this year. I really think that Nissan will probably start looking for other options next year for that second Nissan seat. Number 21, same position as last race, is Sergio Seti Camara. So for Camara, a bit of a tough weekend overall. Was kind of well off the pace of his teammate Dan Ticktum. He also made that mistake in qualifying, which caused him to basically not progress to the semi-final because he basically didn't follow the qualifying procedure properly. So that's a bit of a silly mistake there by Camara. Number 20, dropping 5 positions from last race, is Rene Rast. So for Rast, I think he started the season really well, but recently I think it's been quite tough for him. He made that really kind of silly error, I thought, where he kind of had contact with Lauder and sent Lauder into the wall, and he was well off the pace of his teammate Jake Hughes, all weekend long, this past weekend in Monaco. Number 19, dropping 1 position in my power rankings, is Andre Lauderer. So for Lauderer, a bit of a tough weekend. His qualifying was pretty good for his standards. Qualified 1 position ahead of his teammate Jake Dennis, but that being said, the race was not great. He lost positions and then unfortunately was taken out by Rast. I think it was a racing incident, they said it was, but that being said, still not fantastic for Lauderer. Number 18, dropping 1 position, is Eduardo Mortara. So for Mortara, really tricky weekend. I think they had the car in qualifying to really get some good points, but I think both drivers I felt threw it away a bit this weekend. For Mortara, he kind of crashed into the back of his teammate, and then I think he got damaged from that, and his race was kind of over from there. So unfortunately, another weekend and another poor incident, more contact for Mortara. Number 17, dropping 5 positions, is Oliver Rowland. So for Rowland, he looked like he was having a really good race, and he was making lots of really aggressive moves up the field, and he was well into the points as well. But then he kind of went a bit too far after taking attack mode and crashed right into the back of, I think, Norman Nato or Edo Mortara, I believe, which basically ruined his race, and I think his race was basically over from there. And I think that's really, unfortunately, the reality of Ollie Rowland. You know, he'll get some good speed sometimes, some good overtakes, some really aggressive overtakes, but you also get lots of these kind of silly mistakes. Number 16, staying in the same position, is Robin Frijns. So for Frijns, a bit of an off weekend after a really good weekend by their standards, the app team standards in Berlin. He was out-qualified by his teammate, and I think in the race was kind of just languishing outside the points for most of the race. We didn't really get to see much of him. Number 15, Lucas Di Grassi. So for Di Grassi, a bit of a tough weekend in qualifying. The race was a bit better, but then again, no points, and he's yet to score any points since he got his podium in the first race of the season. Number 14. So this is the first of the two big movers this weekend, and that is Jake Hughes, who moved up 6 positions in my power rankings. So for Hughes, really fantastic weekend overall. I thought, he got pole. I think he was a bit lucky because basically he was originally qualified P2, and then kind of got a really scruffy lap where he kind of cut the Nouvelle chicane, but he was given pole because Van Stras basically had a penalty for overuse. But in the race, I think he was okay, not fantastic, but it was about similar to what we've seen in previous races, where he started really close to the front, where he just kind of dropped several positions from his starting position because he's still getting used to and still learning these cars. But overall, pretty good, I thought, for Hughes, so he moves up 6 positions. Number 13, also moving up 6 positions, and really this order was dependent on the finishing order, I thought, and that was Sasha Van Stras. Took pole position and then was demoted to P2. Race was pretty good. He was able to stay with the front runners for very long portions of the race, kept it clean, didn't have any incidents, and finished P4. So really excellent job for him, and a really fantastic race as well, I thought. Number 12, this driver still had a pretty good weekend, I thought, but they had a couple incidents, and I think they were really lucky to finish where they did, and that was Dan Ticktum. So for down one spot, it was more because of another driver moving up. And I think overall he was pretty solid overall this weekend. He got points, some solid points in P6, which I think he'll be really happy about. Of course, he had that moment where he kind of went into the back of Nato and then blocked Gunther, which probably caused him to retire. But that being said, still pretty good for Dan Ticktum. Number 11 also dropping one position with not a particularly good race, I thought, was Pascal Wehrlein. It seemed like for Wehrlein, he had a not great qualifying, and then he was kind of stuck right side outside the points paying positions for the whole race, and he was not really able to make any progress whatsoever. And we know I don't think it was the Porsche powertrain being poor, because we saw that Dennis was able to kind of negate a poor qualifying and was able to get up towards the leaders as well. So I don't know if it was just a poor setup or what it was, but overall not great for Pascal Wehrlein. Number 10, dropping one position, is Stoffel Van Dorn. So I think for Van Dorn, he's a bit lucky that his teammate Jev, who out-qualified him on quite a bit margin, that kind of starting grid advantage was basically removed when they both started at the back of the grid with basically because they were disqualified from qualifying with a technical infringement. But that being said, he did do really well, and he moved his way all the way up through the field and was into the points by the end of the race. So that's really good, and that's really the most I think they could have expected for Van Dorn. So overall, a bit of a better weekend for him. Number 9, moving up 4 positions, one of the drivers I thought had a really good weekend was Jake Dennis. Finally gets back-to-back podiums, and I thought was really excellent. Got a really good start, and then was able to get his way up towards the front. Maybe if we didn't have the race finishing behind those 2 safety cars, he could have capitalized on the extra energy that he had. But that being said, it was still a pretty good race for Dennis. Number 8, staying in the same position as last week, is Max Gunther. So for Gunther, a bit of a tough weekend. I thought his pace in qualifying was really good though, and then he was hit by his teammate Mortara, and then kind of got caught up in that incident with Ticktum, where he kind of got blocked by him and then crashed into the back of him. I think it was one of those 50-50 racing incidents, but I think it was overall pretty unfortunate for Gunther because he was looking like he was having a really good weekend overall. Number 7, moving down 4 positions, is Antonio Felix da Costa. So for da Costa, really tough weekend overall, really poor qualifying, but the race was a bit better and he started to move up places, but then got a puncture, probably from some contact, and I think his race was basically over from there, but overall pretty tough weekend for da Costa. Now let's see, number 6, staying in the same position, staying in the same position is Sam Bird. A bit of a tough weekend, I thought. A lot of these drivers in this kind of 4th to 8th, I think, had really tough weekends, and I didn't want to just push them all down too far, because I don't want this to be too reactionary. But for Bird, I think, his race was okay, but then he had that incident on the final lap with Muller, or the penultimate lap with Muller, and I think he was a bit unlucky to get that penalty that he was given for that contact though. Number 5, dropping one position from last race, is Sebastian Buemi. So for Buemi, a bit of a rough qualifying, and the race was a bit better, but he was quite far behind his teammate Nick Cassidy this past weekend. So he moves down one position. Let's see, number 4, moving up 3 positions, is actually Nico Müller. So for Müller, I thought he had a really impressive drive again this past weekend in Monaco. He looked like he was maybe going to get a point. I know he lost his front wing. We didn't really see how that happened, but he looked like he was on the verge of getting points in that really poor apt car, and then unfortunately he had that incident with Bird, who was then given a 5-second penalty. So I guess they determined that Bird was primarily at fault for that, and as a result, but yeah, for Muller, it doesn't really change the outcome, but still I thought pretty solid weekend overall for him. Now moving into the top 3, so number 3, moving up 2 positions, is Jean-Eric Vergne. So for Vergne, I think he was quite unlucky to be disqualified from qualifying, but that being said, I think he made the most of it in the race, moving up to 7th position. So really good for him, and he moves up 2 positions on my power rankings. Number 2, same position as last race, is Nick Cassidy. Between him and Evans, it was extremely close between who would be number 1 and who would be number 2. But I felt like just for now I would keep them where they are, and the next outcome of the next race will probably have a major impact on who is number 1 after my next race power ranking. So for him, he's put himself into the lead of the championship. It's a very solid 20-point lead, so he's done really well I think in the kind of middle part of the season so far. And number 1, same position as last race, is Mitch Evans. So for Evans, finishing P2, I thought he had a really good chance of getting the win, but unfortunately the end timing of the safety car at the end, the things didn't really go his way. But that being said, yes, like I said, he's really close, I think, with Cassidy, and the two of them have been really fantastic so far this season. So that's all for my Formula E power rankings. Of course, we now have a 1-month break until the next race in Jakarta, Indonesia, doubleheader. So that should be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.